left tradition, and what Benjamin reproached to it, that the communist tradition seems to follow the technological and the economical development of capitalism. Each new stage of the capitalism is better than the other one, and we have to follow it. It doesn't seem that it worked. Where are the results to know this? Yes?
Isn't the point that you were sort of getting in that comment, that something like the idea of the heart is already a product of a sort of subject and being in effect, sort of this model in communism and capitalism of production and activity. The heart is a sort of byproduct of where you put the in effect, what is but not in effect, Santa Claus or some little memory, that the heart becomes the symptom of both rather than something that just is already there outside of the book.
Yeah. And I think that shared is ontology of effectivity in some way.
I have a couple questions. One, I'm always confused with these conversations about this new phase of capital and its immateriality, because at first the factory is, of course, still the heart of the process. They just happen to be in China, and so it's easy for us to not think about them. But then also I was thinking about the production of subjectivities, and the recent main technology for the production of subjectivities is television. And now, as Guy Debord said in Comments on Society of the Spectacle, the integrated spectacle is when the products of your own life are so fascinating to yourself that it becomes internal. So Facebook then takes over. Yeah. And I mean, the recent survey that over 50% of women would rather give up sex than Facebook, I think it's to the point. It's really
50% of women? 50% of women
would rather give up sex than the Facebook activity.
That's not good.
Now that we seem to switch also to more question of economy, I was wondering, because you, I think 2 sessions ago, you closed it off rather fast, which is the relation, if I have written it down very well, between oikonomia, dispositio, dispositive, and Gestell as in the framing, which relates to Heidegger's thinking of technology. I'm not very sure how to formulate this clearly, but do you think that in the way that my roommate, he's an economist, and he always complains about the fact that economists today are unable to find a model that actually works, that actually can predict anything at all. And do you feel that the way that economy is related to like modes of production, technological development now, that its elusiveness is related to I'm not sure how I can formulate this. That it's I have the feeling that there's, let me put it this way, I have the feeling that there's a link between the incompetence of economists and technological development, that there is some kind of interlacing here. And I felt that you touched upon it at that moment, and maybe you could elaborate a little bit if you
my idea of putting in relation the concept of oikonomia, the theological concept of economia with apparatus, this comes from an investigation I made, which is a kind of a theological genealogy of economy. But then I didn't mean that, again, like I tried to precise many times, didn't mean that what we today call economy comes directly as a result, as an effect from the theologian concept of economia. There are certainly links to connections to be analyzed. And the idea of the economia in my reconstruction is that this economia will mean in theology the divine governance of the world. A special form of government which is not a sovereignty a direct exercise of power, but it is a double mechanism which works also through the internal law of reality. So God, creating the world, has established a system in which he doesn't need to intervene through miracles in it, and to govern, on the contrary, means also to leave the world, so to speak, to work. But that's why when the Kene and first physiocratic economists elaborated their theory of leaving things happen, they follow this model of the divine governance. So that was the point. But then, when you see, for instance, in Adam Smith, you will find that the liberal model is strongly connected with this model of the divine governance. And Smith will speak, this famous image of the invisible hand. This is an image that I found many, many times in theological texts. God governs the world through an invisible hand. And this is, so in the modern economy, which has origins in itself, etc., but takes back this, reenacts or reinstantiates this idea of an internal government of things, of a governance which is not imposing a power on something, but governing it. So, which is a different way of. And the model that Foucault pointed out was the great changing of physiocrats towards the problem they had in that moment. The main problem they had in economy at that moment were famines. So before Queneau and the physiocrats, they try to prevent it, and so to accumulate things, etc., etc. And Queneau has this completely new idea. No, we have leave this thing happen, and once they happen, we must be able to govern them. Which is the model of power of the United States. They leave the things happen, and even they try to help them helping, and once they happen, you govern them. So, and this means that the things is already in the reality, and you have to govern, not try to impose something and think that you can in that way. And this is the modern. In this sense, the economic modern model has to do with the theological economy. But then the connection between technology and economy, that's very interesting, but I think it should be examined along the work.
I think there can be maybe sort of an analogy drawn to the disaster of Hurricane Katrina.
The disaster?
The Hurricane Katrina, which hit New Orleans, and
The hurricane in the southern United States, Katrina.
in 2006, and that the government, FEMA, was deregulated, so it was basically incompetent. Not mentioning there were idiots in charge of the bureaucracy that didn't know how to do anything. But I'm interested, going by what you just said, this idea of preemptive war against terrorism seems to try to assume or somehow have a connection to where this sort of event occurs and coagulate around it, the war on terrorism, for instance. It seems that it's always waiting to appear and to take it. Is that